Everybody's favorite, the morally gray character, and often even better, the morally gray villain. Hey, what's up you guys? I'm Sarah Labrat, and today we are going to be talking about how to write a morally gray character, and more specifically, the morally gray villain. The first thing we're going to be covering applies to a lot of characters, not just villains or morally gray characters, but they are the likability sliding scales. Brandon Sanderson talks about this concept a lot in his creative writing lectures, which is where I took this from. But the sliding scales of likability are likability, competence, and proactivity. At any point throughout the story, a character will sit somewhere on all three of those scales, and that will help decide how likable the character is. Keeping these three things in mind, with how likable they are, which as a morally gray character can fluctuate, but maybe how competent and proactive a morally gray character are. And so while a morally gray character might be a little bit less likable, they can still rank pretty highly on the proactivity and competency scales to make them a more likable character, whether or not you want your readers to realize that they actually like your morally gray character or villain. Something that was also really helpful for me to realize is that where a character lands on these likability scales is going to change throughout the story. Something that can affect where these characters fall in these scales are flaws, limitations, and handicaps. The last thing you want is for your morally gray character to be morally gray just for the sake of being gray. With all characters, it is important to recognize their flaws within the story. Something that I feel really sets apart a morally gray character or morally gray villain or villain in general from other characters within stories are the way that they approach hard decisions. So this is an area where you can really have a lot of fun. One of the most interesting aspects about morally gray characters is that they're the characters who can make decisions that are considered off limits or out of bounds by other characters, and therefore could be things that other characters didn't even think about. A fun way to play this up too is to have other characters reacting to your morally gray character's decisions and actions. You can also have your characters, including your morally gray character, feel regret or remorse for the decisions that were made, but just make sure that these problematic decisions are not completely shrugged off by either your morally gray character or all of your characters in the story, so that it does play up the fact that this character is morally gray because they're making some questionable decisions. And then while considering those things, it's also important to still remember that all characters should have some redeeming qualities. For your morally gray character or even your morally gray villain, finding redeeming characteristics and qualities might be a little bit trickier, but this is where things get really fun, because even though they've decided to unalive a bunch of people, maybe they made those decisions because their family was unalived when that character was younger. So they're either doing it out of revenge or loss or something along those lines, but those things could also be looked at like they're doing it out of love for those people and because they miss those people. And then even though they might be a serial unaliver or whatever, I'm saying that because I don't think YouTube likes the M word or the K word, maybe your morally gray character has an animal that they adore and would quite literally destroy the world to protect. Something like that, where your morally gray character still has plenty of redeeming qualities so that your readers will love them and latch onto them as their new favorite morally gray character. So keep in mind the likability scales of likability, competence, and proactivity, and couple those three things with flaws, limitations, and handicaps, and make sure that you acknowledge that your morally gray character or your morally gray villain is still a character in your story and fully deserves to have a full background and be a fully fledged character and not just be gray for the sake of being gray, but they could be gray for the reason that they make their decisions, because you will be throwing hard decisions at them and they are going to approach them differently than your other characters might. With that, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Sarah Labrat, and I will see you guys in next month's video. Bye.